this woman bought a painting of mine, and she said she opened it up and started crying. I mean, I've done some very emotional Olympic scenes and Tour de France scenes that have touched people, millions of people. But something about a collector buying your painting and saying she cried, that is, whoa.
Look at all those nice paintings back there. I like
How
that.
do you have time to do all this stuff?
I don't. That's the answer. I do not have the time to do all this stuff. I just make the time. I showed up today, and I felt like I was an airplane controller, and all the planes were stacked up at Chicago's airport in a snowstorm, waiting for me to answer questions. And most of them were like, "Oh, here's a problem. Here's a problem." You know
Yeah.
better than I do.
Yeah, well, the problems, you just got to swat them away.
In fact, I'm going to turn my phone off. Speaking of that, you could probably teach me a lot about what it takes to be organized, because doing the Olympics and the Tour de France and all those other things, I mean, you were the controller, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like anything else. It's all about the prep, because when you get to the real deal, you got to go on instinct.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
You got to really tap into that inner self, but as long as you got organized beforehand, you can't just tap into your inner self and all of a sudden you're at the Olympics and go, uh-oh, whoa.
And that's not going to get you one of those 14 Emmys I saw that you got. I read that. That's pretty impressive.
Well, you work on a lot of Olympics and things like that, and you win them all. Actually, I was just showing one guy I had. I won an Emmy 33 years ago for a bike race, the Paris-Roubaix bike race, and I'm thinking, 33, really? Yeah.
Goes fast. Hey, you've been a painter now for 20, right?
Yeah. Well, what'd you do? You did a search on me?
Well, you know what they say. A really smart guy says you need to be prepped if you want it to go seamlessly. So yeah, I just I want to see the background and see what all there is. It's always helpful. I mean, the key is really the art, right? That's what gets you on this podcast, is the art, and you have a really interesting story. By the way, we've started this video. We've started our dealer diaries. We have David Michaels on today, and it's your story is really interesting from an artist standpoint. We'll talk about the other stuff too, but I love the fact that your passion is driving you at this point in your career. And this is kind of, the last quarter of the career. I think we all have those careers. I started as a doctor, ended up as this, and then had started writing late at 50. Well, you did exactly the same in the art world.
Yeah, well, it's everything I've ever done has been passion driven, and the art thing, it came so accidentally, and now it's like, I don't know if I want to call it a disease, but
yeah, no, it's a disease. I think,
it's some no, you know what? It's
pathology
more
of some type.
It's an addiction.
Yeah, that's right.
It's like some days I cannot wait to get up and go into my studio and just start moving paint around. I mean, some days are like that. Some nights I might be lying in bed. It'd be like 12:30. My wife's sleeping. House is quiet. I go, oh, wait a minute. What about that rock I was working on? And I just kind of go in there, and my studio's in my garage.
Yeah.
I've taken over a full garage thing. So then I'll be in there at 12:30 in my pajamas, and all of a sudden I got a paintbrush in my hand and going, what are you doing?
This is
Or
great B-roll, by the way. Where is that B-roll of you in the pajamas with the thing? We need that.
no, it's like I just wonder sometimes how can I be doing it? It's crazy, but I don't know. And then and then there's those days where I don't want to go in there. I don't want to lay any paint out. It's like I just go in there and sit, and I don't know if I'm afraid to paint or I'm afraid to do something or whatever. But all of a sudden, it's like it stops, and then I don't know. I'll go do something else, or I'll be distracted by my regular day job,
Yeah.
and
That's,
that
I,
that comes in.
yeah, I think that's one of the hardest things when you still have another job, that it does interfere with the flow. Cause I think it is a flow. I really do. And I find that to be a problem sometimes when I want to write, that I need to disengage from other things to be able to get that, turn that spigot on.
Yeah, well, it's like recently I did the Tour de France from the house here
Right.
because we were all goofed up over the pandemic. So I'm doing the tour, and I didn't even go in my studio for 3 weeks. It was so it just became too consuming. It was all consuming.
Yeah, well, it has to be that way, right? To be able to make it worth doing, right? You don't want to do something that's not going to be up to your standards. And at this point, I would assume for Olympics and those kind of sporting events, your standards are extremely high. Um,
Yeah,
so, and this is a first, right? That was the first time it was ever done virtually, I assume.
yeah. No, and unfortunately, we've proven we can do it this way. So I don't think we'll be going back to France anytime soon. You
Wow.
know, the show was the highest rated in a few years since the Lance Armstrong days,
Wow.
and it's a lot cheaper.
Yeah.
I mean, unbelievably cheaper, and and the show wasn't bad. I mean, again, I did my first Tour de France in '83, so if I haven't figured out how to do it yet, I'm in trouble.
Yeah. Yeah. And so when you do something like that, you're the executive producer. Is that your title? What's your title on that?
Yeah, I used to. I mean, sometimes I'm the director where I'm
Yeah.
picture picking and roll tape machine D, put the graphic in. Sometimes I do that, but in the last couple of years, I'm more. I'll just the pointer. Hey, wait a minute! You got to explain that. Just sort of sit in the back but I get involved in all the planning on a day-to-day basis, especially in France.
Yeah. So what's involved in doing something like that? I mean, I'm just curious to understand how you pull off a remote uh, tour that's thousands of miles, that has different stations through different environments, and you have to capture all that. What's involved in that?
You mean in the tour in tour
Yeah.
to tour,
Yeah.
tour daily? It's the craziest thing. It's like you get up in the morning about 7, have a nice croissant and coffee. Sometimes they have a frozen croissant. Then you drive to the finish line and get there, let's say 9 o'clock, and the race doesn't start for 5 hours, so it's all planning and figuring it out and pre-packaging all the pieces, and then race goes off at we're on the air around 2 o'clock local, goes to about 6 o'clock local. Then we do the primetime show till 7:30 local, and then we might drive as many as 150 miles after that.
Wow.
So it's not real glamorous, like stopping by one of those little pizza trucks on the way back downtown. It's like, hey, in France, Greg, we're having such a good time.
Well, you're focused on your job, that's the thing.
Right. But sometimes you might be in the same place for 2 days, and then you finish, go back to your hotel, and there's an incredible meal waiting for you. You go, wow, this is really worth it.
And do you, I have this funny feeling that for the different legs of that race, there are times you have no clue who won. that race because you are just so focused on getting the imagery, right? The
Well,
story.
you gotta no, actually, you gotta really know what's
Do
happening.
you?
It's like, especially if I'm directing the show and they're coming near the finish line, you got to make a decision. Am I going up to the helicopter shot to show who's going to win? Am I going low to see, who's there? And you got to evaluate. It's like, wait a minute, the sprinter's there, and the other, so you have to really know it to know what to do. Because a lot of times, I've seen it happen. French director all the time to just take the wrong camera, and then you go, "Who won? I have no idea what just happened." So, it's you got to really hone in on the sport. So,
And do you have to have all the stats and know all the things that are going on, just like you would in a like what your brother does? That you have to know those people so you know who's going to win, potentially win, so you can be
oh yeah,
focused
you
on
got to
them.
have a great research staff, and and just everybody's got to be in sync. I like to think of it as maneuvering a cruise ship out of a tight harbor. It's like get everybody on board. Wait a minute, how are we going to move this boat around? It's like it's so complicated. It's like once you get going, it's like wow, this is like a dream. This
What
is
is that?
like
2 weeks long? Is Tour de France 2 weeks?
no, it's
3 weeks?
3 weeks.
3 weeks, yeah.
So
You can
it's
tell I've
fun.
never watched your show, so.
Uh, but the really funny part about all this, and kind of going back to how we started, is here's this Tour de France that is 91 people that I'm trying to get into sync. And essentially, it pretty much comes down to me. I mean, I got to motivate people. I've got to give them direction. I got to, that's what I'm doing. But when I'm an artist, it's just me. And that is incredible after being in a collective art form for so many years, for 45 years in a collective art form. And now I'm in an individual art form where my wife might say, oh, is that a barn or an outhouse? Or, maybe you better stop now. But other than that, I can just say, go make some jewelry or something. Don't leave it.
And your wife, by the way, is an art teacher too, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. She was when I first met her. One of the funniest things was she was making an American flag out of nails for her art class, and I thought, wow, this is really crazy. I think I like this girl. Like she's, then she made some sculptures and she was great at watercolors, and it was like, but I wasn't interested enough to do it other than when I wanted to really hang out with her, I decided to go to the drawing classes. And the drawing classes, of course, had naked people. This was in the 60s.
Yeah.
And of course, they had naked people now too. But here were these naked people. And I thought, wow, this is a pretty good combo. I got my girlfriend and all this kind of cool stuff going on in the drawing class. But it all went by the wayside for years and years.
Yeah. And I
Until
want
I
to,
was,
yeah, I want to get to that point too and how you got there because, you have this unusual, it's very, it's not completely unique in the sense I've seen great artists like Bill Gallen kind of had a similar route, but you had this unusual aspect that you really started off in a completely different way and then ended up where you are today. So let's start, where did you grow up? How did that all happen? What were your folks doing?
well, I grew up in Brooklyn
That's right.
initially. Actual real Brooklyn. I was born in Brooklyn. My dad was a theatrical agent, and he represented some like jazz bands, and he was like booked their tours, and so he was an agent. And my mom was just a homemaker. And then, excuse me. So my dad, he all of a sudden got kind of famous in his company, and they moved him to California when I was 8. And he sort of moved into a little bit of, he was representing Pat Boone at the
Yeah,
time,
that's big. That's huge.
Les Paul and Mary Ford, so he was able to make a pretty good living out of that. And then, um, I was just a Southern California teenage crazy. But things changed in my life when I was 11, when I went to summer camp. And here I was up in the Sierras in California, in these incredible places and these beautiful mountains and lakes. And I thought, I had no idea these places really existed. And that changed my life forever. It's like I ended up going to college in Colorado. People said, "Well, why'd you go to the University of Denver?" And I said, "To ski and to hike."
Yeah,
So
there's a lot of people I know who've done that exact same thing.
I mean, it's kind of crazy. So I did that, and
But you weren't interested in art or drawing or any of that as a kid, in grade school
I,
or middle school or high school?
I took some drawing classes, but I really wasn't very good. My standard drawing was, I used to love to draw missiles on the launch pad in Cape Canaveral. You
Yeah,
know,
that makes
like
sense.
when John Glenn took off, I made drawings about what the rocket looked like and things like that. So I do that, but I was so bad with perspective that it intimidated me, and I was kind of like, I can't do this.
So
And
the interest was there. The
yeah, the
interest
interest,
was there.
I wanted
Yeah.
it. It was one of those things where I really, really, really wanted to do it, but I couldn't, and I didn't have anybody who was providing any kind of instruction. And I was used to, in that time, let's say high school and all that, where if I wanted to do something, like I wrote a lot, I was editor of the college newspaper, and so I was able to do writing. I would just do it. It came to me.
Right.
Or if I was able to, I used to, I did psychedelic light shows in Colorado, and I just kind of knew how to put the visuals together.
See, so
And
you're a visual guy. See, that's the funny thing. You're
yeah,
totally 100% a visual individual, and your whole life actually has been all about visuals. 100%.
yeah, no, I mean, it really has. I mean, both in, newspaper photography and doing that kind of crazy stuff. But, doing the light show was fantastic because we would paint these little slides and take like 6 slides and put them all and flash them up there and get the liquids going. And,
Uh-huh.
it's kind of nuts.
And what was your major when you went to college?
Political science.
Political science. And why political science? Just because
Well,
that
because
seemed like a route?
I wanted to change the world. I
Ah,
wanted to make it a better place. I wanted to be like a State Department emissary. And, I just had all these crazy delusions that I could really affect change.
this was mid 60s?
This was, I got to University of Denver in 67,
Yeah.
graduated in 71.
So that's right in the height of Vietnam War, right
Yeah,
there.
oh yeah. I was a big protester,
Yeah.
100% against the war, and had a high draft number, so I didn't, I was able to steer clear of
You
that.
remember that day when they did the pull for
I
the draft?
do.
Yeah, I bet you
For
do.
212.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's a dramatic time frame. I mean, your life is in the balance to some extent, and your morals, I guess, in some cases as well.
I knew people that when I was a freshman in college with these guys, and they dropped out, and then 3 years later they came back. They were, I mean, it was pretty amazing to see how it changed people.
Yeah.
It was very disturbing.
And so you
But
were 12, you were 212. You got the pick. That was in that they did it. That was in 69 that they did the
yeah,
draw.
I mean, yeah, they never got. I don't know what they got to. They didn't get very far because
Yeah.
I guess the people were still volunteering at the time.
Yeah.
So, so I had the political science degree, and I
Yeah.
had worked on a number of political campaigns, including Bobby Kennedy's presidential campaign, and just working on campaigns. And also, when I was in college, I was an intern at the state legislature. So I figured, okay, I'll, let me start all this up. So I failed the State Department entrance exam
Mm.
after I graduated.
Uh-huh.
And I thought, oh, well, that's not going to work. But I'm pretty good at politics. And as things led to things, I left college and I was a newspaper writer for a number of years. But then I finally did the political thing and worked for a congressman who lost the election in Colorado. And it was all distraught, and there was my dream of going to Washington and politics, and I'm worthless, and what am I going to do with myself? And then I get a call from the senator at the time, Floyd Haskell, who
Yeah.
said, "Kid, I think you did a hell of a job with that guy. He had no chance to win.
Uh-huh.
Why don't you come work for me in Washington?" And I'm like,
Uh-huh.
"What? Really? Okay." So then I had my Washington experience, but I don't know if this is getting too far
No,
afield.
this is, you know what, it's the building blocks to how you end up where you end up. And without understanding those things, for one thing, I've already picked out of this talk is that I think if you had a teacher, an art teacher that
Yeah,
showed any kind of interest in you when you were in primary or middle school or even high school, you would have gone a completely different route.
you are exactly right. I mean, just to go back to it, I really wanted to be able to draw. I really wanted to be able to paint.
Yeah.
And you're right. I just never, some people say, "Oh my God, I was all saved by this wonderful art teacher."
Yeah.
Well, I never had that person in art. I had
Yeah.
that person in government and poli sci classes, but not in art.
Yeah. And that, so to me, that's one of the reasons I like to find out this background because I can see things that I couldn't see before. So I don't know how Floyd affected you in Washington, but I'm sure it did. And so so you were in Washington working for this United States Senator, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. And
working in the
so,
U.S. Senate, and
yeah, what was that? I mean, that either made you really into politics or go, I'm never doing this again.
well, that's what happened. What happened was um, he was a big backer of alternative energy back then. And I helped work with him and the staff to develop a solar energy research institute.
Wow, that's early too,
And
right? We're
it
talking
was really cool. But guess
early
what?
70s, late 60s kind of time frame.
Yeah, this was 76.
Yeah.
But guess what? The different unions in Colorado didn't want it. The petroleum workers and the oil, chemical, and atomic workers.
Yeah.
And I remember being called into Floyd's office one day, and he said, "Kid, we talked, we lived with
Yeah.
rough. Kid, we're gonna pull the bill." I go, "What?" "We're gonna pull the bill," because he was up for re-election and he needed the money.
Yeah.
And I came home. I remember coming home that night to Kathy and saying, "Okay, it's official. I stand for nothing." And it was like, this is why in Washington wasn't going to work.
Yeah.
But near the end of the DC time, I hooked back up with my friend from the light show. And we started doing some more content related light shows. And I'm thinking, this is what I want to do. And then things led to things. And I did a documentary for the United Way of America when I was still in DC on volunteerism in America. Who people that volunteer are, what they do, why do they do it, and it was kind of, it was a fun documentary, and I was scared doing it because I thought, I don't know much about doing a documentary, but I think I'll try.
Right.
So anyway, it worked out fine, and I showed it to my dad. It was like a Thanksgiving or something like that, and he watched it and he said, "Why are you wasting your time in the backwater of Washington D.C.? I'm going to send this along to somebody who um, you should talk to." So that documentary led to working on a show about the Olympics in 1980,
Wow.
and that's kind of how. And then it all snowballed. It's like I just found this route, and it was about this combination of visuals, music, and words, and somehow it just all worked for me.
That's,
And my career just kind of, it's like one of those things where I could sit now and look back and go, wait a minute, what the hell happened? It's like, and people like, all these kids come up to me now and go, oh yeah, we heard about you. We know what, it's like, really? Okay.
So in
So,
'84, did you do the LA Olympics? You must have been involved in
no,
that as
I
well.
was
No?
working at CBS at the time, and it was an ABC show.
I see.
It took me a long time. There was a period of time after the election when Haskell had lost. My daughter had just been born. I was unemployed, and I'm sitting in this place in DC going, what am I going to do with myself?
Right.
And this friend of mine who worked, funnily enough, at the United Way when we eventually got back together, he said, hey, this Olympic film is playing in the Smithsonian tonight, 76 Olympic film, it's premiere. I said, I don't want to go. He said, no, you're coming. I'm going to be at your house in 15 minutes, and you're coming with me. And I went to the Smithsonian with him, and I sat down, and the first pictures came on. It was just the sounds of the city and a telephoto shot of the Olympic Stadium. I started crying.
Wow.
And I said, oh no. And then when everything was happening, I said, okay, that's what I want to do. That's it. And so that was in 78. It was September of 78. And it took me 14 years to get to the Olympics. But I got there.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. So
it was a struggle.
90 is the first Olympics, because if you saw it in
92.
70, yeah, 92. And what do you think it was about that just that epiphany went off?
Well, it was coming back to what I always wanted to do, because here was this united world and people from all countries and everybody, kind of loving each other, and it all kind of rolled back into exactly what it was I wanted to do. I wanted to be a part of the world getting together, and it was the Olympics, and I sort of followed it as a kid. My brother and I, we'd love to watch it, but I never thought I'd work it.
Yeah.
You
You know,
know,
let's talk about your brother just a little bit, just because I know you more because of you're on the right path of being an artist, but your brother is well known in the sports world, Al Michaels, and we even had a funny kind of, that's how we met. Interestingly, I don't know if you remember that. Do you remember when we met in the gallery?
yeah,
I had played with golf with your brother that
he played
day
golf with me.
before, I think. And his name came up and you go, really? And I go, yeah. And he goes, well, I'm his brother. I'm like, what?
Yeah, that was in Santa Fe, I think.
I think it was Tucson. No, it was Tucson because I played with him here in Tucson. And
Oh,
and you were looking for art, and he was at Canyon Ranch doing whatever he was doing at Canyon Ranch.
yeah, no, he, it's like Canyon Ranch, the gold standard.
Yeah.
But anyway, when he was a kid, he our dad was a man. He was a crazy sports fan. I mean, we'd go to the Dodgers, the Yankees, and all those things when we still lived in Brooklyn. And my dad was also the track announcer at a horse racing track and an auto track. Okay, welcome everybody. So my brother used to imitate him all the time, and I wanted, I wanted to be driving a car. I didn't want to be, but my brother, he just thought, wow, this announcing thing is really cool. So he started taking the racing form in the morning at the kitchen table, and he'd announce the horse races like my dad would do.
Oh, that's funny.
And he was like, it was like he was an arrow. It's like I may have gone up and down and this and that. He just like, pew! I want to be the guy. I want to announce for the Dodgers. I mean, do the World Series or the Super Bowl or whatever.
Right.
No, it couldn't be any farther from the truth. So, and it was a funny thing when we were growing up, we'd watch sports all the time together. And I'd always complain about, hey, they didn't show how the fumble happened. And
Right.
he'd always complain about, that guy said the wrong thing. And we used to sit there and laugh all the time. And it was like, yeah, well, one day when we're in charge of all this crap, let's, we'll change it. And, it was all just a pipe dream. And I left the sports thing behind for, again, that was another thing for a lot of years, to follow the political world. And my brother, he would call me on the phone incessantly. What are you doing? Get out of there. You don't do this politics thing. Get out. You can't do this. Get back where you need to be. So, all those things coming together, here I am.
And when you hear Al do the announcement, do you hear your father?
No, it's much different.
He's changed. He's developed his own now.
Yeah, I mean, my dad was, it was more. It was not a broadcast voice or a broadcast thing. It was more, you know, attention, it was one of those things.
Well, you say he was laser focused, but I see the same focus, the same laser focus after you see that movie in '76 and go, this is it. This is where I'm going. This is all, I mean, it's the same thing.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was laser focused on getting there. And and in those years, there was, I don't know, a lot of ups and downs, a lot of craziness. I actually, when I was talking about how I wanted to save the world and do all the political thing and all that, I was in Sarajevo one time, and I was working with a crew that had a Croat and a Muslim and a regular Bosnian and a guy from up north. And they say, look how we're all together, and that was great. And then later that day, I had to solve a problem between Russian TV, Japanese TV, Canadians, us, and the Brits over the coverage of this figure skating event. So I'm sitting there in that meeting going, wow, I mean, this ain't the UN, but not bad.
Yeah. And you're in politics in a way, really. You're in international politics.
Yeah, well, I had to make a solution. And it had to make a solution for self-preservation, because I had a show to do too.
So are you still I know you just do the Tour de France, but are you still actively involved in the Olympic channel and all those kind of things?
No, actually, what's happened now is the broadcast world has fundamentally shifted with the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
People don't go on location anymore. And I'm not up for going back to Stamford, Connecticut, where everybody is working, because I don't necessarily feel safe going to Connecticut for a couple months.
Yeah.
So basically, I've taken a leave of absence. And so I'm out of it. I'm not sure what's going to happen for the Olympics this year. I was scheduled to go to Tokyo and work in the
Right.
control room on the primetime show, but I don't know. I don't know. That's why part of the thing is that's why I've now moved into being this artist guy.
Right.
And my wife she just laughing because she just says, I can't believe what you're doing. I mean, seriously, Mark. I'm not a medicine man gallery guy, but I'm selling a lot of these paintings. I mean, I don't
I
sell.
saw. I counted how many was. There was almost 50 paintings. You sold 45 paintings on your
Yeah,
site.
it's nuts. I mean, it's like I don't know what happened
Well, I can tell
prior
you
to
one reason: you're too cheap. You got to increase your price structure.
you and my wife. But what happened is right at the time of the pandemic, I don't think I'd sold 7 or 8, 9. All of a sudden, it was like a landslide. It was like, and I thought, and then it was the really hard part. I'm going, I paint because I love to paint. I paint because I have to paint. But now, wait a minute, maybe I need to make another one of those valleys with the cactus in it because I already sold 2 of them. I mean, all of a sudden now I'm faced with these crazy decisions that I never had to face.
Yeah, and so how have you dealt with that? I mean, because every artist that makes a living painting has to deal with these decisions. My style is recognizable. Do I keep that up? The subject matter I use, people like it. Do I do that? Or can I reach and see what else happens? And they have to make decisions. And so you're making those decisions as well. So what are you doing?
Well, I mean, I'm I'm resisting going to commercial. I mean, it has to. If for me to paint something, I've really got to feel it.
Of course.
And like last week, um, I needed to get outside, paint for life, and because the heat of the summer was gone, and so I went out and I started doing these little studies of houses in weird places in a place called Camarillo, California,
Hmm.
and farms and all. And it was like, wow, it's like a breath of fresh air. And I'm thinking, I'm never going to sell any of this stuff, but I don't care.
All
I'm
right.
having too much fun. I sold one today.
You're going to sell a few more after this podcast, my friend. I would
No.
recommend, I'll let this go a little later so you can build up your inventory. So when it hits, they'll all be coming. Where's those cheap paintings I hear about from this guy?
Yeah, well, I mean, I try to, you know, but again, because like my brother is like totally insane. He goes, that one over there. What are you selling that for? I said, well, I'm selling that for like 680. 680,000? No, $680. And he's going, he said, have you completely lost your mind? I said, no, I'm not completely lost my mind. He says, you got it. This is ridiculous. He said, the paintings are great, but you can't be charging that kind of money to be my brother.
He wants you to make them at least 6,000. He just doesn't understand that the market will bear what the
Yeah,
market
no,
will
I
bear.
mean, he doesn't, what does he know
Yeah,
about that?
we'll tell him that he should buy all of them then,
He
and
could. In
and
fact,
then
I
he can
could
just,
sell.
yeah, he can book them. So let's talk about how you got here as a painter now, because this was kind of, you had this epiphany in 76, and you're what, 40 at that? How old were you at that time?
76,
Yeah, you were about,
26,
you were, how old were you?
26.
Yeah. So at 50, you had another epiphany as far as painting, right? Something happened in your
Well,
life.
at 50, I was like, I can't believe I'm 50 and what is going on with my life.
Yes.
And my wife was planning this 50th birthday for me because I wanted to go to Africa, but things were too complicated. So she bought me an African headdress and a drum and a bracelet and a CD to put in the car. And we went to Death Valley.
Yeah.
And
Beautiful there.
on my 50th birthday, which was in 2000,
Yeah.
she said, okay, here's what we're doing on your birthday. We're going to go paint. And I said, what? Paint? Okay, really? So, and she's a watercolor person.
Yeah.
So we packed up our pack and we went off and painted. And I'm sitting out there in the desert with the watercolors that I know nothing about. She goes, okay, well, you can make a wash. It's like, what? But anyway, something clicked in my brain. And I thought, wow, I love being out here. I love trying to translate that cliff into a painting. I said, this could be something really cool. But I don't want to do this watercolor thing.
You want oil.
So we painted that day. We painted the next day. And I moved on to pastels. And one of the things I started doing was I wanted to find mentors. I figured the only way I'm going to get really good at this is if I find somebody. And, you know, I got smarter in my years.
And is that how did you know that just from your business of
Yeah,
doing documentaries and all these things, that you find people that are smarter than you and learn from them?
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so I found a guy. His name is Brad Fagry, and he was an artist in La Habra, California. But I loved his style, so I went to visit him, had a good time, and then he said, "Hey, you want to come out and paint?" I thought, "What? Paint?" You know, I didn't know that people painted with artists. You know,
Right.
so I went out to paint with him, and then we had a long friendship where he would, you know, just give me sort of staccato lessons, and it would, you know, it was great. It was fun, but I didn't want to get all messy. Just like pastel dust, and I mean, nothing, no offense to the pastelistas out there, but
Right.
that, you know. So once again, my wife comes to the rescue. She was in Italy with some friends, and or no, she was in Amsterdam. And of course, this is funny. So she's in Amsterdam. She comes back and goes, "I solved your problem." I said, "What did you do?" She said, "I don't know if these paints are any good, but here's a set of oil paint." And it was Old Holland,
Yeah.
which is, you know, probably the most expensive.
Right.
So I said, okay. So then that was it. I Once I got that oil, once I got into that sensuousness of it and the colors and how you can rework it and scrape it, and, I mean, it just like it was love at first bite. And so then the same thing happened. I had to find real mentors.
Yes.
And the first guy I ran into by accident was Ray Roberts.
Yeah. Who's one of the great teachers of all time.
And it was a thing up in Idlewild, California. It was a 3-day plein air.
Yep.
And, you know, I fell in love with Ray. Ray was everything, you know, that I wanted in a teacher. And Peggy was there.
Yeah.
In between the two of them, it was like a dream. And so Ray and I got to be good friends off of this thing. This was in '08, long time ago now.
Yeah. Well, he's really interesting to watch paint. He's one of the most confident painters I've ever seen. I like to watch my artists paint if I can and get out in the field with them, because you learn so much about their paintings, really, and you understand the emotion that goes into them. And Ray is just so confident with his. I mean, he doesn't even need to look at his palette, right? I mean, he knows where everything is, and he's just
It's
focusing on the landscape. He's focusing on the imagery, the sun, and all that, and he's just doing his thing.
it's unbelievable. It's like if you look at the palette, it's just a bunch of mud.
Yeah.
But his color relationship, his sense of composition, it was phenomenal. And I would used to joke that for me, Ray was teaching calculus, and I was barely out of algebra 2.
It's probably true, actually.
Yeah. Well, I mean, all of a sudden now I'm starting to get some of the things that he's been pounding into me for 12 years. But
Yeah, and see, that's about right. It takes that time, right? It takes the, proverbial 10,000 hours, the Malcolm Gladwell, standard to
yeah,
get
no, it was
confident, and
crazy.
you're there, right? I mean, you started 20 years ago, I guess, right? When you got your
Yeah.
set, and now you've been, and now you're on it. I mean, I can see it. I watch it. It's really interesting as an art dealer to watch somebody progress. And I can see the progression.
Wow, I appreciate
Yeah,
that.
yeah, no, I can. I mean, that last painting you did, which I think made a comment on, was really strong. A desert painting that was just like, wow, that's a really strong painting. He got all the composition, the colors. It was something I go, yeah, I can relate to that. By the way, is that a Josh Elliott in the background on the in
Back
your?
up here.
Yeah, yeah, that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, I was like, oh, that's Josh's work.
How
And
about the one in the
I know
Normandy?
who that is too. That looks like. Swinnerton, actually. I don't know if it is, but it has a Swinnerton look to it. Is it?
No,
Is
you
it?
know what? I love Swinnerton,
Yeah.
but that's a Sam Hyde Harris, which is
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
now. Here's the funny part. This is why you are completely insane. He painted that painting with Jimmy Swinnerton.
Ah,
That particular painting, because people in St. George, where that's just outside of St. George,
yes.
um, I was sort of looking into stuff, and they said, "Oh yeah, they used to come here all the time."
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, the foreground doesn't look like Swinnerton so much,
Yeah,
but
it doesn't have that surreal.
yeah, but the red and the composition sure does. Yeah, they're probably
Yeah,
sitting
then up
side by
here on
side.
the top is the Carl Dempel.
I can't see it because my face is on that for the video.
Uh,
Here, let me move this. And so this is why people, oh, there you go. People who listen to this should also watch it on YouTube, because you get to see all the beautiful images. And we're in the studio of, oh yeah, look at that. I just now noticed. I'm focused. See, this tells me I'm an art dealer, right? I look only at the art. I'm interested in the art. And then I just noticed there's like these Emmys that are stacked up above the television, right? Is that what those are? Yeah, those are.
oh,
Right?
yeah,
Yeah, I didn't even notice that. More interested in the art.
that's all right.
Yeah, well, you've got 14 of them. I mean, they're probably stacked around
I
there.
got I got a Tour de France painting up here too.
Oh
Over
yeah,
here.
that's what that. Oh, now I can see it. Yeah. So you met with Ray. He taught you a great deal, and then you also worked with Joe Carver too, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, but in between was Lorenzo Chavez.
Oh, you're also a good painter.
Now Lorenzo, he he was unbelievable. Lorenzo, it really explained atmospheric perspective to me, and he really pounded it into my head. And I took a class with him where we had to do 7 drawings in 10 minutes, 12 minutes.
Wow.
And it was just so, it was like, it was visceral art.
Yeah.
So between those two things, Lorenzo kind of really opened my eyes to technique, to things I hadn't really thought about. I mean, how, just the whole notion of shadows going from dark to less and less and less and less, which obviously now, but it's like back then I'm going, well, how come every value in my painting is completely flat? So he was great on that. And then, and then I was able to move on to Jill, and I just love Jill. She's just,
She's fantastic. She's an amazing painter.
yeah, watching her paint is absolutely incredible. I mean, it's like, I don't even know. I don't know how she does what she does.
Well, when you look at her paintings, I always find there's a real emotional connect to her paintings.
Yeah.
There may be landscapes and they may come from life, but that you feel some emotional guttural response. At least I do when I look at
Well,
Everyone.
I think that because part of what she, in her sort of checklist for the painter, the number one thing is always, why are you doing it?
Hmm.
What's the narrative here? And that's, that to me, I hadn't thought much about that. I'd think, wow, well, that's kind of a pretty vista. Why don't I paint it? Whereas now I'm going, I'm looking for a story. I'm looking for emotional tie-in. And she really brought that to me.
Yeah. So what have in the time that you've started till now, and now you're a competent artist who's selling their work. You've sold almost 50 paintings. You're clearly have found your rhythm. What is it that has changed from the beginning of that time frame to now?
Confidence.
Yeah, there you go. That's right. I get that.
Confidence is everything. When there's a time when, and I never thought this would actually happen to me, where I will say, I can paint anything, and like I'll try to paint anything.
Right.
And things that I was always afraid of, like people, um, all of a sudden now it's like the, the confidence is, confidence is taken over. So I think that's the principal thing, and not sweating the details all the time. It's like you used to say back in the old days, well, go and find the big shapes and then make the big shapes into smaller. I'm going, what? I don't see any shapes. What are you talking about?
Uh-huh.
Well, now it's like when you start seeing, it's like, again, learning. I think that from the beginning to now, a lot of the people that I work with have taught me to see.
Hmm. You see things differently too in your environment, right? When you
Yeah.
go out in your environment, you see the whole thing differently, right?
Yeah. I mean, and I drive my wife crazy now. It's like, oh, wow, look at that. There's so much blue back there in those trees. She goes, are you serious?
And you are serious.
And I am serious. You're right. I am serious. And it's like I was just out the other day painting some fields in Camarillo and mountains. And it was one of those things where you knew it was going to turn into something really magical. And and I'm sitting there going, there is no place I'd rather be than out here with my paintbrush, standing at my easel, looking at what I'm looking at, and actually trying to translate what's happening. You know, that's the best.
You think if you had the opportunity and you could have done it all over again, would you have started as a painter to begin with, as an artist?
Boy, I don't know. You know, I think I would have liked to have kept it up as kind of a hobby while I was going along. But I, what I don't get from painting as much is the adrenaline rush. I mean, I do when I was out there, like I was just describing that
Right.
place in Rio. That was a pure adrenaline rush, and
Right.
that was great. But like when I'm doing the Olympics, I get a 2 week adrenaline rush, and then you become an adrenaline junkie. And so, I'm not sure I would have traded that in,
Yeah.
but in the last few years, strangely enough, I've gone to France and done like 5 or 6 watercolors through the course of the tour on the days off. On the days off, I always painted. And, sometimes at night, I'd be sitting there banging my head against the wall going, oh, maybe I'll paint some. Or I'll paint out my window in the morning, take an hour. So I kind of wish I had started a lot earlier and developed as I went. But
Yeah, it
I don't
sounds
know.
like you,
I don't know. You brought up such a fascinating point that if I'd run into a teacher, all might have been different.
I think it would have been. I think it would have been. Um, because the difference between what you did for a living and was very successful, as I see it, and what art brings you is it's art is more spiritual almost to you, I think. There is an emotionally connected point that hits your heart. And the other, I think, is more hits your intellect and your brain. And is, as you said, you're an adrenaline junkie. It gets going. You get all the synapses running. You got a flight and fight response. And
Right. We're gonna go. We're gonna crash and burn.
yeah, exactly. And people can get addicted to that very easily. But when it all comes down to it, and you're at the Tour de France and you're looking out the window and you're having a problem, where do you go to? You go to your heart, right? You go back to painting. Yeah, you get the painting out and you go do it. So I don't know.
Well, the other interesting thing about the painting that I didn't really get from TV or any other stuff is all of a sudden, like I'll do some of these desert scenes, and I'll get, I don't know, 12 things on Facebook of, this is where my father used to take us when we were kids and picnic, or my mother's favorite spot. And all of a sudden, all this emotional stuff is coming up from people who are buying my work. And it's like, for me, it's like, oh man, I never expected this. Like this woman bought a painting of mine about 3 days ago, and she said she opened it up and started crying. And I said,
Oh, wow.
and I'm saying to myself, well, oh. I said,
Huh?
really? And she goes, it reminded me of what my mother loved. It was, sort of an overcast day with blue streaks in the sky and indistinct mountains and sagebrush. I mean, but it was like her mom's favorite environment.
Yeah. The painting allowed her to interpret what she saw,
Yeah,
which is what good
painting,
paintings do.
yeah,
Good
and,
paintings
and
do just that.
and so many of these paintings have touched people in ways that I'm like, whoa, and that is something you don't get from TV. I mean, yeah, people go, oh, that was a great show, and I love the Olympics, and
Right.
and like, yeah, that was, I mean, I've done some very emotional Olympic scenes and Tour de France scenes and all of that that have touched people, millions of people.
Right.
But something about uh, a collector buying your painting and saying she cried, that is, whoa.
Yeah. Which will live on and may become a family heirloom that her child or grandchildren have the same connection to for generations. You know?
What do you think?
Yeah, I know. Well, that's what art does, right? I mean,
Yeah,
it's capable of doing. I mean, that's why I do what I do. I mean, one of the reasons is I feel this connection, whatever it is. That's why I do this podcast. Is I'm psycho analyzing my own, why I do what I do as much as anything else. And I learn from other artists, from other people. When they tell me these stories, I can see my own path and how I kind of developed. And I find it so interesting when somebody like yourself, who's very successful, gets paid, I'm sure, well for what you do, but yet will be willing to do everything all the time to make a $650 painting and get, great joy out of it, because it's not a money thing. It's a heart thing.
right. I mean, and that's the point that scares me about even selling any of it is I like to make people happy, but at the same time, I don't want to give away the
No,
paintings.
you shouldn't.
No,
No,
you know what I mean. I don't want to give away, but I don't know. It's a weird dichotomy.
well, real artists, I think they don't give those things away other than to friends and to special or trade or whatever. But part of the process is that you made these to sell. If you want to be a real, a professional artist, you're making art to sell, and you may keep some special pieces, you may give some away, but the other ones, that's what you do, whether regardless of the cost or the value of what it is. It's the process. That's part of the lineage, I think, of being an artist, quite frankly.
Yeah, I mean, I do want to get some remuneration, And because, I mean, nothing's cheap. Even you make an order for panels. It's like, what? Or, the amount of paint I go through. It's like, that's the other thing. It's like, can't believe I'm, it's like, again, going back to Kathy, she goes, you got another package from
Uh-huh.
Jerry's Artorama.
Yeah.
What's in there now? I go, oh, she goes, how much paint do you need? I go, well, I just went through all this paint.
It's funny though. She really is the one of the key components of your whole life, and not only just as a marriage, but she must have heard you over the years talk about art and how you wish you could do it. For her to buy that set of watercolors and going, we're going painting.
Yeah, because she always said back in the old days when we were first dating and going to those nude classes, she said, you're a really good artist. And I didn't believe it. She said, no, your drawings are really good. They're really interesting. And, she tried to foster it. But I don't know. Again, looking back to that, it's like, yeah, confidence was a huge bad issue for me. My lack of confidence also stood in the way of, following the art. Because if I just kept going at that point, I mean, I was only 18, 19 years old.
Yeah. Yeah, I would have. I think if you put, you need the ignition, and if somebody will ignite you and then you have the desire, the rest will take over. Even if the skill set like drawing isn't very good or whatever, you surpass that all the time. You see this in sports all the time that, these people that get incredibly great, they may have not been the most gifted, but they had the desire to be gifted. And yeah, you would have been there. You are
Yeah,
there now. You've gotten there.
yeah. I mean, yeah.
Yeah,
To
you have
to
gotten there. I can tell you, you've gotten there. So what do you tell people who might be on either end of the spectrum, the 18-year-old who's considering it, or the 50 or 70-year-old who really wants to take this seriously? What's your advice to them?
Well, I mean, I'm very positive about, and I get a lot of comments from people saying, "Well, here's my work," and it's like you look at it and go, ugh, maybe you should. But I mean, it's like I love to encourage people to do this because you open yourself, you you become more humble, you become more human when you do your art for whatever purpose. And I just say to anybody, just like I was just saying to you about on the Tour de France, I'm kind of going nuts and I'm looking out my window painting a nocturne. It's like, yeah, but guess what? That helped me get through the night. That helped me get through the tour.
Yeah.
And that was an important thing. Whereas I might have sat and been perplexed all night and not able to get to bed. So there's, lots of, I just think people, if you have any inclination, pick up that brush or pencil or stick or whatever it takes, pick it up and just follow it. Don't try to be, the other thing is trying to figure out who the hell you are.
Right. That's a big one for an artist.
Yeah. I mean, it's like I would say to myself, I don't have a style. Kathy would say, you do have a style. That's your style. Shut up and paint. And it's like, oh, okay, but who am I really?
Well, it's like singing, I think. A great artist who's a singer, they find a song that does something to them, right? It makes them feel the emotion. I think as an artist, whatever that thing is, for you, I think it's the desert. It seems to be, plein air desert paintings causes you to click and to want to go out there. And just like you said, the greatest place of my life was sitting out there painting, and I just go, look at me, how lucky. And I think that's it. You got to go with the gut, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, it's that kind of breathtaking moments aren't going to happen doing most anything else in life. I mean, yeah, I mean, because I love hiking and, but it's a whole different dynamic. It's like when you're actually when your hand is connecting to a canvas, and you're putting something down and you're observing where you are, and you're I don't know.
And you just got admitted to some kind of an event, right? For one of your paintings, judged into
Yeah, well, the
yeah,
California Art Club, which
yeah, that's right.
I've been a member for a while, it's like I never had a hope of being juried into one of their competitions because it's extremely highly competitive.
Yeah, it is.
Even a couple of artists that have been in a lot of them said, "Hey, I didn't get into that contest," but yeah, it was pretty damn cool. I mean, it's like wow, it's like it's like I had written on the Facebook that I'm, I guess I'm legit now. I'm in the California Art Club, but it's the bummer is it's a virtual show this year.
Yeah, but the good news is there'll be some that aren't, and you're not going any way away from painting. You're still going to continue on this road, clearly. In fact, I expect you'll be doing more than you ever have because you're not going to be doing the Olympics and the other stuff.
Yeah. No, I mean I think now I'd be very content just being a painter. I
There
mean,
you go. There you go. There's the one. That's the total, take home of this podcast, I think, quite frankly.
yeah,
And
it's
so this is your opportunity to plug yourself too. Let's get out the website and all that, because if somebody wants to buy one of your paintings, you're not selling in a gallery, you sell your own stuff. So how do they find you?
DavidMichaelsArt.com. It's an easy one, and I think one of the most fun things about my website, if I can speak immodestly,
Yeah.
isn't what's for sale, but I write a lot of goofy stories about people that I work with and artists that I know, and it's a art centric sort of blog about about art and struggles and things like that. So that's kind of fun.
And they're
Uh,
good too. I read them actually. I spent the time and read the blogs, and they
wow.
are. Yeah, I did. They were very interesting. And you're a good writer. So I do like that. And that's something that I wish more artists would do for themselves, because it does bring the consumer, brings the person who's interested in the art a little closer to the heart of who the person is, which is important.
Yeah, but part of it is you have a certain image of yourself, and if you're gonna, I mean, I like to with my writing, I kind of stand out there a little naked a lot of times, just like
Good.
here are my fears, here's what I feel. Some people, may not want to let their guard down, so I'm just, like I say, I'm just a crazy guy standing out there naked, writing
Uh-huh.
down, and
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 you're also
then
on Facebook too,
there's
right?
maybe I may have to up my inventory, like you said.
Yeah, well, generally what happens as a dealer, what we do is if an artist, we can't keep things in the gallery, they keep selling, then you have to increase your price structure. And that's what you do. That's what all artists do, uh, professional artists. So yeah, I mean, I looked at your price structure and I did say, oh, these seem kind of inexpensive. I think he needs about a 25% jump. I think if you did that, you actually wouldn't find that it stops sales at all, because they're of the quality. I think they're actually undervalued for the quality of the artwork that's there, quite frankly.
All right, well, I'll take the advice from a master.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, you can take me to dinner when you get another 250 bucks on each one of your paintings, but they are. I mean, for what you are getting, I wouldn't say this if I didn't believe it. I think you have the stones to paint. I think they're good paintings. I don't comment on people's paintings on Facebook unless I think they're quality. I just don't go down that road. And you've managed to put out some really outstanding pieces. You're getting it. You've got it. You clearly, through how you've done it, through hard work and through teachers like Ray Roberts and Chavez and Carver and those, you've managed to find your way. And I think that's a takeaway too for people too, that using great teachers can really make a huge difference.
Yeah, the teacher thing is crucial.
Yeah. So any last parting words for us on the Art Dealer Diaries? I mean, you
No,
don't
but
have to go here, close this thing, look at this one. We're getting now that shot right there. So can we put this up for an Emmy? I don't think so, but a
no, it's
podcast
been great.
award.
It's been great talking with you, and you know, I've always loved your gallery and all the stuff that you do, and you have a great eye. And for you to give me a tacit seal of approval for my art is, wow, that's better than the California Art Club. I mean,
Well, that's a huge compliment. I don't know if it's true, but you
no,
know,
it is true. It is true. But I think it's cool.
yeah. And so they can find you on Facebook too, right? You have a Facebook. That's how I
Yeah,
work.
it's just David Nichols.
Yeah.
The old saying, everything's pretty simple.
Yeah. Keep it simple,
And you can
stupid.
find me on Facebook and David Michaels Art. So that's
Maybe when you go, the Olympics, it would be interesting to see if you went not as your profession, but as an artist.
that that would be great.
Yeah,
That would
no.
be great.
Yeah, you might want to consider that. Seriously.
Well, you know what? I gotta show you one thing. I can't really get it up.
Yeah, go ahead. We got time.
Uh,
I can see up there. So we're looking
you
at,
see this painting up here?
yes.
That's me directing TV.
Oh, that's cool. And and it's a painting. I can't, it almost looks like a photograph, but
And no, it's a very abstract looking pastel that I'm in. Brad Figry did.
oh, very cool. Yeah, well, you're clearly surrounded by art. And again, I recommend people looking at this on YouTube because you can see the beautiful artwork. And, if you surround yourself with art, if you embrace art, and if you let your heart, do all the things that one's heart does with art, you get on a path that is a
Yeah, I
great,
mean, it's
it's a great
like
road.
this
Oh
is
yeah.
Matt Smith.
I knew exactly who that was. So this is a beautiful little desert scene of Matt Smith. Have you taken any classes with Matt at all?
No, I did sign on to one of his Tucson art things online. It was like an hour class or whatever.
Yeah, no, those are great. He's a fantastic teacher,
Yeah.
and he does teach at that Tucson Art Academy, and he's one of the best.
Oh, here's another funny one.
So we're doing show and tell. This is a Peggy Kroll Roberts right here. I can tell. It looks like.
But that's me,
Yep.
Mark Feldman,
And Ray.
Byron Smith.
Oh, Byron. Yeah, that's a beautiful. Is that a watercolor or is that a gouache or what is that? Yeah, gouache. Yeah. Again, you guys have to go look at this stuff, and we'll put some of your paintings too up on the YouTube. We'll just snag them. We'll snag them from the video from your website if you don't mind.
So how long you been doing these?
Podcast. So you're probably my 135th podcast now. And this is my third year doing these. So I do one a week. Well, we drop one a week, but like this week I'm done 3. I've done John Coleman, you, and then I'm doing Bill Anton tomorrow, I believe. So I'm having a great deal of fun doing it. It seems to be something that resonates with me, and I seem to be pretty good at it. And so as long as I'm having fun and I'm telling a story and I'm getting information, I look at it as a historical record. So instance, I did Baron Wolman, who just passed away this last week, who was the photographer for the Rolling Stone magazine and was at Woodstock. And so now that 2-hour conversation is there. Even though Baron's gone, his story is there. And I see that as part of my role, quite frankly.
Well, you're very good at doing this. You have a perfect demeanor for it. It's like most people in your position don't know how to listen real well. Their podcast is all about them. And, it's been really fun doing this with you because you ask good questions and it's really, very comfortable.
Thank you. Well, that's what I try to do it's not the Mark Sublette show, it's the Art Dealer Diaries. So my job is to get out of the way, listen, let the person tell the story so I can understand it, And then if I follow it correctly and listen, then I'll have the questions I need to ask. I don't have any questions pre-thought up when I do one of these things. I may do a little research, but I just want to hear where it goes. I mean, and then all of a sudden you get these points, like I could hear, you should have been an artist right to begin with. You just didn't have the damn art teacher there to finish the ignition.
You'll have me thinking about that for a while. That's for sure. It's like, because I never quite thought about it that way. But yeah.
It's there. I bet your wife knew that.
Yep. Well, she always thought I was better than I was. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, at some point, what we have to do is we have to put together a group of people that promote art teachers, because I think it's a very important component of our educational system that's not embraced like it should be, quite frankly.
well, that's for sure. I mean, we spend a lot of time here. When my kids were in school, just trying to save the art program. I mean,
Yeah.
it's crazy. It's like, are you kidding me? Why don't you get rid of anything but that?
Right. Yeah. Or just not even get rid of anything, just come up with the funds.
Yeah.
Talk to art.
So we raised money for a lot of years. We raised a lot of money to hire an art teacher, outside of the district,
Yeah, that's
teach in the
fantastic.
school. So that worked.
All right. Well, we had a wonderful talk. I enjoyed the heck out of it. I look
Yeah,
forward.
I
I don't know.
enjoyed it.
I don't know when we'll get to have dinner again. I'd like to do that at some point in time.
As
But
long as I don't get in an accident on the way to
I
dinner.
remember that. I do remember that. So, but otherwise, we'll just keep painting. Say hi to all my painter friends that you're out there, and unless you have anything else to say, I'll be watching you on Facebook, and you'll be seeing me or listening to me, hopefully, on this podcast.
Yeah, no, I'm in now.
All right, cool. David,
All
wonderful.
right, say hi to Patrick. He's did good keeping me in the loop.
All right, very good. I'll let him know. He's going to love that outshout for him. And just keep painting, keep us all in going, and just do what you're doing, man. Because you found your lane. You're really there, and believe it or not, and well, I don't even have to tell you this. It makes a difference, right? For that one person that you sold that painting to that cried, that's enough. That's
Right.
why you do it.
That's everything.
It's the whole ball game, in my opinion. So good for you. Congratulations.
Thanks.
All right, David Michael.
All right.
Talk to you soon.
I hope to see you soon. When we get out and about.
Yeah, who knows? A year from now, probably.
Yeah.
So I'll let you know if I'm around where you are. But yes,
Okay.
I'll keep watching you on Facebook. And again, I encourage people who are watching this, join this Facebook, watch it, and and go to your site to read the blogs. They are very cool. I read a bunch of them actually, and I read them because I was enjoying them. So
Well, thank you.
there you go, baby. We'll
All
talk
right.
soon. All right.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
We need your support for the Medicine Man Gallery channel, so make sure to click the subscribe button and tap the little bell icon to be notified when we upload a new video, which we do every morning on Wednesday and Friday. See you soon.